So here's my 1984. I've loaded it with a voiceover already.
I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery.
So I thought it's a nice voiceover that's counterpoint to the imagery. I'm going to work with 3 audio tracks underneath it. Vox 2, 3, and 4. I've loaded this one up on my first track. Now I'm going to leave that one basically untouched, but I'm going to select portions of it to drop on the bottom. That way, if I ever want more of it, I can go get it. Now, why 3? Well, let me mute it for a moment and let's examine the video. We have an exterior, what I would call cylinder. We cut to an interior of a cylinder. And then as we continue, we end up in a large hall. I'm going to take it from this wide shot. A big part of this exercise is perspective shifts. And that's why I'd like to use 3 separate audio tracks to represent exterior cylinder, interior cylinder, and then finally the large hall. Hold an Option, drop this down, and I'm going to lock this audio track. And I'm going to use my razor blade and hit the letter C, make a cut. Then I'm going to go back to my letter V, my selection tool, and I'm going to drop this audio down. Then I'm going to hit play.
That's not my business.
Or scrub forward until I see the big hall. There it is, where the CV comes in.
We want to live by each other's.
Right there, I'm using my arrow keys to back up. And again, use my razor blade, make a cut. And go back to the letter V, drop that audio down. Now I've got the tracks where I want them. I'm going to add some reverbs to them to shift my perspectives. Starting with this first one, I'm going to go into my effects down here in my project window. And if they're not opening, mine are right there, effects. If you don't see them, then you might need to go to your window and add your effects. But they're there. Click on my effects. And an easy way to find the reverb is just type in there, reverb. It may take a moment to add. I'm going to use with this convolution reverb. I'm going to drag it right on top. Now once I add it, I need to go to my effect controls up here. Click, there it is. And that way I can edit it. But if you don't see your effect controls up here, you may need to add it by going to Window and Effect Controls. Now for the exterior of the cylinder, it's a distant source. So I'm going to go to my presets, distant source, and medium size cave. Here we go, medium size cave. I can select a in and an out point and hear this loop. So I think I want to do that. I'm going to do a couple undos so I can hear it first and get my reverbs right. So I'm going to set in, out. Now I've got my loop control playback already selected here. If you don't see a loop playback, you have to hit the plus key and you'll be able to find it there. Select it and then add it on. Go back in here, loop, and it'll keep looping for you. A little hard to understand, and I've got gain here I can also add. I've got mix. So I'm going to drop my mix down about 80%.
I'm sorry. I don't want to be.
I like it better on the 80 because I can understand what he's saying. Now I'm going to go into my fade. So it fades in right about there. I'm going to hold in Command and click a point on my timeline. Hold in Command, click a point at the beginning, set my keyframes.
I don't want to be.
All right, so I've got my first perspective. I'd like to do a crossfade here, so I'm going to pull this over a bit. I'm going to pull this over a bit. With this one, I'm going to do a cross fade, so I'm going to hold in Command, make a keyframe there, crossfade these two. I'm also going to hit Option X and erase all my ins and outs. Cleared those out.
I don't want to read. That's not my business. I don't want to.
Okay.
That's not my business. I don't want to read. That's not my business.
Now I'm in the inside of the cylinder. Let's do something there. Going to do it the same thing, convolution reverb, drop it in. With this one, with it selected, I'm going to take about this part here to about this part here. Oops. In, out, and now it's going to loop. And I found that Under the Bridge is kind of nice, so I'll click Edit for the preset, Under the Bridge. And for the impulse, I'm going to go with a Massive Cavern. Massive Cavern. Hit my loop play. And I'll manipulate this a little bit. I'm going to turn up my gain. Sounding okay. I'm going to hit Option X, clear those out. I'd like to take it back to here and hear how these two are working together and how they're crossfading together.
I don't want to read. That's not my business. I don't want to.
So I've got a little bit of that ricocheting sound, which is what I'm sort of looking for. Finally, I want to get into the big hall. With the surround reverb, while it's selected, click on your surround reverb, edit. I really like the cathedral kind of sound. A little big right now. Let me set some ins and outs. In, out. Let's play that until I get the sound right. I'm going to crank up my gain a bit. I'm having trouble understanding him, so I'm going to drop down. I'm going to drop down the mix a bit.
We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone. The good earth is rich. We don't want to hate and despise one
I like that.
In this world, there's room for everyone. The good earth is rich. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone.
All right. Let me hit Option X, clear out my ins and outs. I'm going to back this up a little bit more.
We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery.
All right.
We don't want to hate.
So if anything, what I would probably do here is drop this volume down a little bit.
We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that.
Every time the TV gets closer, I want to hear it a little bit louder. And the way I would do that is look for the shots of the TV. So there's one where it should get a little bit closer, just a tiny bit. There's a little trick I'm going to do with this one. I'm going to hit, use my letter C, cut. The reverbs aren't going to change.
And provide for everyone a way of life.
Back this up a little bit. Make a cut. And then I'm going to go back to the letter V. I'm going to select this. And the trick I'm going to do is I'm going to use my brackets and I'm going to increase the volume by hitting the bracket twice, just giving it a slight change from one shot to the next.
For everyone, the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls.
And every time it cuts to the TV, it's just slightly closer. This one, use the letter C, cut.
Has barricaded the world with hate Goose stepped us.
See? And then
Goose stepped us into misery.
there's one way at the end,
We have developed.
right there. And that's going to be the loudest. I always like the frame early and frame late.
We have shut ourselves.
Now, if you recall, go back to the letter V. With this one, I raised it two brackets. This one, I'm going to go 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this final one, I'm going to go 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance.
Don't forget, you're going to have a lot of other elements going on. But overall, these can be smoothed in, along with those other elements blended in. Once it hits the TV,
Has left us in want. Our knowledge has.
you can do all sorts of stuff. You can do a speed thing where maybe the TV gets fast, gets slow, just does all sorts of crazy stuff, along with the explosions, the glass hitting, shattering. But having his voice also twirl out of control would be a really nice effect. There's so many different things you could do to make that happen.